Every 12 to 18 months, like clockwork, we are treated to this very specific discourse around Chris Brown, and it typically creeps up, I noticed, after the Super Bowl. But anyways, we are treated to this discourse surrounding, is it time to forgive Chris Brown? Can we move on? Can we separate the art from the artist? And if you are one of those people engaging in that discourse and asking the general public this question, I'm going to hold your hand with a napkin in between when I say this. Chris Brown is doing just fine. Chris Brown is doing okay. And if his continued career success is any indicator, Chris Brown was forgiven and people moved on a long time ago. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel if you are new here, or welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we are talking about people's collective amnesia and attempts to gaslight people into forgiving Chris Brown when there is nothing really to forgive, in the sense that Chris Brown was forgiven and not really held accountable a very long time ago. Right after the Super Bowl, there's this discourse around him that pops up like, oh, it would be so nice to see Chris Brown do a Super Bowl, and why hasn't Chris Brown gotten a Super Bowl yet? And he has the catalog for it. And I even saw a tweet, and I wish I had screenshotted it when I saw it, because that is what got the gears going in my mind. Like, what is going on here? Are we being gaslit? Like, or do people just have like collective amnesia? Because this girl was asking, like, can we see, when are we going to see Chris Brown in a Super Bowl? Can we see him in a Super Bowl? And he responded, I only go where I am appreciated, or I only go where I'm wanted. And it's like, then you can stay here in America, or possibly even do a Super Bowl someday, because you are beyond celebrated. There is still a demand for Chris Brown. He just won a Grammy like 2 weeks ago, like not even up to 2 weeks ago. So this idea that he has been blackballed from the industry, or his career has taken a hit that he has never recovered from, it's like, again, are we being gaslit, or are people just not aware that this man is doing just fine, and he is still touring, he is still performing, and he is still pretty successful? No bags are stopping for Chris Brown. Chris Brown is like doing okay. So if you are one of the people who is legitimately concerned about his career and the fact that he is not getting certain opportunities, or he's just, not where you think he should be, being pushed in front of our face, and he should be everybody's problematic fave, I'm here to tell you that Chris Brown is doing okay. But let's talk about this, because every time I see this conversation, it really makes me wonder, or not necessarily it makes me wonder, it just goes to show that the bar for men, specifically male celebrities and male artists, the bar is in hell, and it is so much lower for them. And we do not hold men to the same standard as women. And people hide behind, oh, can we separate the art from the artist? And people use that phrase to defend their problematic fave, which is more often than not a problematic man. This really starts with Rihanna. Of course, it goes back to Rihanna. Back in 2009, Chris Brown assaulted Rihanna. The photos were leaked. She never wanted them out there, and I will not be posting those photos out of respect for Rihanna, because she made it very clear that she did not want those photos out there. And I actually wonder if she ever sued that police department, because they were out of line for selling those photos, leaking them, and releasing them. It just goes to show how women are re-victimized by the system. And a lot of people say, oh, well, if this happened to a woman, why doesn't she report it? It's like, you are a victim after the assault, after what happened. And then when you go and report it, you are often victimized again by the system and the police, who are supposed to be helping you. So anyways, for that reason alone, I will not be posting the photos here, but I distinctly remember that was my senior year of college, and I loved Rihanna. I still love Rihanna very much, but I remember seeing those photos and I was like, oh my God, like, it was just, I don't know. I can't look at those photos without just like feeling just this level of, oh my goodness, like this man really abused her. So that happened in 2009. And obviously Chris Brown did face some consequences as a result of that assault. However, over time, I think people have gotten this idea in their head that that was the only time he assaulted a woman. And if Rihanna forgave him and could forgive him and went on to date him and went on to be friends with him, why can't we, the general public, forgive him? And again, that just goes to show how people do not understand cycles of abuse in relationships, domestic violence. Like it's so crazy how far we've come as a society, because in 2025, a lot of this seems to be common sense. Like, we understand it takes a woman at least 7 attempts to leave before she finally leaves and stays away for good. We know this now in 2025, but in 2009, we didn't really have the language for that. You know, the mainstream media was still, I mean, the mainstream media is still very misogynistic, but back then it was even worse. And there was this just quickness to blame Rihanna. And I think that because of that quickness to blame Rihanna and the fact that she forgave him, they went on to date afterwards. They remained friends even after that. I think that really minimized what happened. And that's why so many people were just quick to kind of dismiss what happened to her, because they were like, okay, well, he assaulted her. If it was so bad, she would have left and she would have stayed away for good. So the fact that she continued to be with him, I think that really minimized what he did to her in the general public's eye. A lot of people think she was his only victim, despite the fact that he is on court record. His ex, Karrueche Tran, has come out to talk about the ways in which he assaulted her, the ways in which he threatened her, the ways in which he threatened her, the people she would continue to date. I think she even ended up having a restraining order against him that was renewed once, if not twice. So this man has a history of violence, but because Rihanna was the biggest in terms of celebrity that we associate with Chris Brown, and again, she forgave him, people just are like, oh, okay, whatever. And so they're quick to dismiss it and move on. And there was the whole, oh, well, she hit him first, because in the police report and even in subsequent interviews Rihanna did, she did acknowledge the fact that they were fighting, that she hit him first. And so people are like, oh, well, she hit him. If you don't want a man to hit you back, or if you know men are stronger, don't fight with men. Don't hit men if you're not gonna, don't hit men if you don't expect to be hitting back. And it's just like, okay, like, sure. I'm not even going to touch that, because that's a very disingenuous conversation. And I know the direction it's going in. You know how you just like, you're sitting and you're having a conversation with someone and they're starting to say certain things and you're like, I already know what time this person is on, so I'm not even going to engage that level of a conversation. But yeah, so because Rihanna was very open about the fact that she did hit him first, again, a lot of people were quick to dismiss her assault and what happened to her. Then there was the whole rumor, which is so crazy to think about now. Somebody gets assaulted and the first thing people do is ask, what did she do? How did she contribute to this? He would have just never hit her like that. He would have just never gone off. She must have done something. And in people's rush to blame the woman, blame the victim, I remember that rumor that she passed on something to him that was incurable. He found out and he snapped as a result. And people even attributed that to the scar on her lip. While she's never shared the origin of the scar on her lip, she has talked about it and made reference to it and acknowledged it is there, but she's never gave an explanation as to what caused that scar. And I never saw it. I'm a big Rihanna fan. Okay. I was always like from 2005. Like, so I do not recall, and I even went back and watched some of her music videos, that scar was not there in her early videos. You only saw it after the assault. So it is entirely possible that scar is a result of the assault that happened to her that night. Allegedly, it is entirely possible. But if you look at her when she broke out on the scene 2005, and you look at her afterwards, 2009, 2010, you know, especially in her rated R videos, like that her rated R era, like Russian roulette, you see it there, and it was never there before. She has never disclosed what the origin of that scar is, but I would not be surprised if it was a result of what happened to her that night. And also attempts to minimize what he did. People will bring up his age at the time. He was only 19. He was only 20. He was so young. And yes, domestic violence in teenage relationships, it is very high when you look at the statistics. However, at 19 or 20 years old, you know hitting somebody is wrong. I've never really used age as an excuse when it comes to certain things, because while I understand your prefrontal cortex being fully developed, really, I'm telling you, your prefrontal cortex, having a developed prefrontal cortex is really a game changer. And I think I said it in one of my previous videos. I give a pass to people to a certain extent when they do and say things under the age of like 26, 27, because it's like, I know you're not working with a fully developed center of reason, logic, critical thinking, long-term planning, understanding. Like, I know that is not fully developed in younger people, so I do give them a pass. However, beating someone, assaulting them, and then continuing with that history of violence, he is a violent person. So the excuse that a lot of people gave, oh, he was only 19, he was only 20 at the time, it never flew with me, especially because this was never an isolated incident. It would be one thing if he assaulted her, he did get 5 years of probation from that assault, and then he went on to be a fully changed person, never did it again, gave all of these talks about domestic violence and anger management. You know, if he had went on to turn over a new leaf, I could maybe be like, okay, yeah, he was only 19 or 20. It was an isolated incident. It was a heated moment. They were both very angry and this thing happened. However, he continued to be this way. He continued to be violent. So using his age as an excuse, it just never flew with me. It was never an acceptable excuse or reason to forgive him for me, because I do not listen to Chris Brown's music. I just don't. It's not for me. However, again, people want to convince you to forgive and be a fan of their problematic faith. Just the ways that there's like this level of cognitive dissonance I think people need to employ when they are a fan of or they like someone who is very problematic or who has a history of doing horrible things. So the cognitive dissonance, they have to reconcile it with them in their brain. And so they come up with all of these excuses. Like another excuse that I saw was that Rihanna didn't look like a victim. She didn't act like a victim. She wasn't soft. She wasn't crying. She wasn't falling apart all the time when she was talking about it. Again, she went back to him. Again, she forgave him. And I really think that was, again, we owe so many women. Like when I look at the way mainstream media and the tabloids and just paparazzi, how we treated girls and women in the 2000s, we owe girls and women, we owe celebrities, artists, singers, whatever. We owe so many women huge apologies, because the way mainstream media treated young girls and women in the 2000s was absolute trash. And when you look back on her music in the time after that assault happened, rated R, looking at it, I can see so clearly someone who was fighting for control of their own narrative, trying to heal from this horrible thing that happened to them. She never wanted to be a victim again. And it really, like, you see this change happen in Rihanna post-rated R era. And I absolutely think it was in direct response to the assault, right? And so because we see this hard kind of Rihanna, like literally hard with Young Jeezy, that song came out. We see Russian Roulette. We see this kind of dark sound in her music, this kind of like femme fatale. And I don't think that look, the femme fatale look, the sound, I don't think the public was expecting that. I think that they were expecting Rihanna to come out crying and disheveled. Any and every time something happens to a woman, she is assaulted, she is attacked, there is violence done onto her. In our brains, we have this, a lot of people have this idea of what a perfect victim looks like, and Rihanna did not come out looking like a perfect victim. And in her music, I think that that's what people were looking for. And when they were instead presented with this strong, dark, sexy, confident woman who was not going to be a victim on their terms, I think that definitely turned people against her as far as not really viewing her as a victim. And the fact that she continued to have a relationship with Chris Brown, I think those two things, I think it really helped him in the sense that people were not going to hold him accountable at all. You know, even in court, how often are women assaulted or attacked and you find it doesn't even make it to court a lot of the time. There are no charges filed. You know, charges were filed in this case. However, at the end of it, all he got was 5 years of probation. And I think that absolutely him getting such a light sentence absolutely was informed and impacted by the fact that Rihanna forgave him and went on to continue to have a relationship with him. And so he owes, if anything, the crazy part is, for so many people who think that his career was negatively impacted by him assaulting her, he owes her a lot of thanks, because without her forgiving him and without her not wanting to be a victim and without her being strong and presenting a different image, not playing into that broken woman narrative and victim, that really helped him move past this situation. If anything, if this was an isolated incident, if he had gone on to turn over a new leaf after this, I genuinely believe that we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Like, the fact that there are people who still are not rocking with Chris Brown is due to, at least as it pertains to his violence, it's not only due to the Rihanna incident. That was the first one that happened so visibly in the public eye. And the only reason why it happened so visibly in the public eye is because those photos were leaked. He has gone on again to have a very violent history with women he has continued to date, okay? So the fact Rihanna kind of gave him an out in that situation. Her forgiving him gave him an out, or at least it made it so that more people were willing to forgive him and look past what he did, okay? So like, it's crazy to me that people honestly think that his career was impacted by this in a tangible way that has made it so he is still suffering today. And Chris Brown is doing just fine. That man is still touring, still performing, still releasing music. He's doing okay. And you know, I've heard so many people say in the past, if Rihanna has forgiven him and moved on, why can't we? And listen, Romans 12:19-21, vengeance is not mine. I can sit here and say, I don't listen to Chris Brown. I don't really care for his music. However, am I sitting out here picketing against him, protesting him, actively boycotting him, and encouraging others to do so? No, not really. Everybody has a problematic fave. My problematic fave is Doja Cat. I'm not gonna sit here and encourage anybody to listen to Doja Cat's music though. If you don't like her, don't listen to her music, you know? So I think the same is, if you don't like anybody, don't listen to their music. But I think what sparked this video is that seeing this conversation from people really think Chris Brown is out there suffering and taking L's is actually wild to me, because that could not be further from the truth. Now, will I judge you for enjoying the music of a colorist man who does not like Black women, specifically dark-skinned Black women, a man who is violent and jokes about it, who still thinks it's funny? Will I absolutely never play any of his music? And will I turn off or skip a song if it is being played in my vicinity and I have some level of control over the aux cord? Absolutely. Yes, indeed. But can you? Are you free to like him? Are you free to go to his concerts and attend his show and buy his albums and stream his music? Absolutely. Because like I said, we are all entitled to like and listen to whoever it is we like and listen to, and have our problematic faves, because there are a subset of people who can separate the art from the artist. I, however, am not one of those people. That's not where my politic is. That does not align with my values. I am not going to continue to support and put money in the pockets of someone who is actively not a good person. But that is just me, and other people have other standards for what makes someone a good person. Everybody has their own standard of acceptability, what they're willing to tolerate, what they're willing to accept. I think I just have, the older I get, I realize that there is no artist out there making such profound music, making such necessary, must listen to music, that I can ignore terrible things that they are doing or saying. It's not that deep to me. There are very few artists out there making music that moves the needle or changes anything to the point where I would even consider continuing to listen to their music. Like Kendrick Lamar, for example. It would be, if something came out about Kendrick or even J. Cole, it would be real hard. It would be real hard to let their music go. It would be real hard. But would I do it? Yes, because like I said, there are just not many people out there making profound music that I must listen to it in spite of and despite the fact that they're just not a good person. The bar is just really low for a lot of celebrities and artists, and I think that bar is lower for specifically male celebrities and male artists, because the bar is just low for men in general. You know, we are so quick to forgive men for problematic, destructive, harmful behavior in a way that we would never forgive women for. This is a tried and true double standard, the ways in which we hold men and women accountable when they behave badly, when they're doing something terrible, when they are actively terrible human beings. There is a different level, there is a standard that men and women are held to, and we coddle men in a way we do not coddle and forgive women. The bar is so much lower for men that every single time I hear that phrase, oh, why can't we separate the art from the artist? 9 times out of 10, I would say 9.5 times out of 10, it is always being spoken in reference to a male artist, to a man, never a female artist, never a woman. I don't think I have ever, that's a lie actually, Nicki Minaj, when she became real problematic and just like a little off, like she was clearly going through something. I hope she's okay, you know, but like Nicki Minaj, I think that is the only artist I have ever seen anybody say, can we separate the art from the artist? It's only ever been Nicki Minaj. Everybody else though, every single time I hear that phrase being used, it's always in reference to a man. Like even think about Kanye West, for example. This man has been running around here for actual years, saying pretty heinous stuff. You know, slavery was a choice. People didn't cancel him then, which is actually kind of crazy to me. That's when I canceled him, for me personally, again, for me. But there were a lot of people who were like, well, you know, like just being very willfully, like just being willfully ignorant and obtuse, because we objectively know slavery was a choice. However, the way he said it was very disingenuous, and people like will support and back up their problematic faves. And it's actually crazy to me that in 2025, I think we're finally going to maybe see the cancellation of Kanye West, but it is wild to me that Britney Spears was put in a conservatorship for so much less. Meanwhile, this man is running around here being an actual menace to society and is free to do so. Like, actually kind of crazy. Although I think allegedly his wife just escaped and is now filing for divorce. And if that's the case, thoughts and prayers and best of wishes and congratulations to her, because anyways, I digress. People are always saying, oh, we should separate the art from the artist and just hold on to their talent because that's what they're putting out into the atmosphere, and and none of us are perfect, and so that's what we should be receiving. However, while I can understand the case being made for that, sure, I get it. We have to decide for ourselves what the bar is. We are only ever considering extending and giving that grace to men. You know, men are able to go on and have full careers after being caught doing heinous things, while women are scolded and it never leaves them. You know, I remember the assault when it happened. The amount of people that were quick to blame Rihanna was just very alarming to me. And I think that, like I've said it before, I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record, how she moved past that, not wanting to be a victim, instead of people seeing that as a sign of strength and seeing it as a way that she was dealing with her assault and what happened to her and processing it. People instead chose to use that as ammunition to, oh yeah, she was probably the aggressor. I mean, look at her in this music video. She's so hard. She's over here saying that she's so hard, you know, she's not this soft, delicate flower. She's not over here crying and falling apart. So why should we be crying and falling apart on her behalf? And to that vein, we can't forget that race is a factor, because race is always a factor. And somebody's probably like, oh, here we go. Here she goes again, playing the race card. And if that's you, I don't know what to tell you. If you are still operating under the belief that race does not play a role and does not play a factor in our society, especially when it comes to Black women and the level of misogynoir Black women experience in this country, we're not gonna see eye to eye. We're not gonna level. Your feelings are not facts. I'm here speaking facts. You're talking about your feelings and want to dismiss racism and anti-Blackness against Black women, and I can't help you out there. So I'm sorry. But if you're still with me, race is always a factor. And I absolutely think that race really informed this whole, can we forgive Chris Brown, separating the art from the artist, Rihanna not being viewed as a victim, her not playing a victim and performing in the way people would have wanted and appreciated. Race absolutely plays a factor in all of this. Chris Brown's core demographic is women, specifically Black women, and they are the largest group of people I see writing for him, despite the fact that Chris Brown does not like Black women. Let me be very specific because somebody will be like, Rihanna is a black woman. Yes, Rihanna is a black woman. Chris Brown does not like dark-skinned black women. Chris Brown does not like black women who are darker than a cup of tea or coffee with some milk in it. Like, Chris Brown is a colorist. There have been numerous stories of him kicking dark-skinned black women, brown-skinned black women out of his sections at clubs. He won't even allow some of them into the clubs when he is making an appearance. Chris Brown doesn't like dark-skinned black women. Chris Brown does not like black women who look like me, and I would be an actual idiot to sit up here and support, amplify, give my time, energy, and attention to support their career. Someone who does not like me, someone who would not even allow me to occupy the same space as them because of the color of my skin. That is insane. But you look at his shows, you look at his meet and greets, and who do you see? His core demographic, his core audience, black women. Black women who look like me. And you know, some of my sisters, we gotta release ourselves. We gotta release ourselves. The bar has to be higher than a guy who maybe has some swag and sex appeal and is good looking and is able to sing and dance. Like, the bar has gotta be so much higher. This man is a notorious colorist, and that's enough right there for me. But people will dismiss it as a preference. You know, they'll say, oh, that's just his preference. He just prefers light-skinned women. And listen, we are not gonna sit here, if we are not able to just understand and agree on the fact that white supremacy has done a number on us as far as beauty standards go. And if we cannot acknowledge the role of white supremacy in beauty standards, especially in communities of color where we experience and see a lot of colorism, we are not able to have a good faith conversation, and I just gotta leave you where you're at. But if you're still with me, you're still with me, and I appreciate you. Thank you for keeping up. Thank you for keeping up. But yeah, like I said, so going back to race, we cannot deny that race does play a role and inform how some regard him, especially in the black community. And the black community is very quick to swarm, uplift, protect, and forgive black men, because there is a very real history in this country of black men being persecuted by systems, by the media, by society. Black women have the same target on their back, but it is at a different level in comparison to black men. And so within the black community, we are quick to swarm in to protect and uplift black men, oftentimes, unfortunately, at the detriment of black women. And black women also participate in this uplifting, in this protection, in this defense of black men at our own detriment. That's another conversation for another day, but I would be remiss if I did not bring it up in discussing the fact that Chris Brown's core demographic is black women. This would not be a whole video because there are levels of complexities and nuances to this entire situation. And when it comes to that protection, that uplifting, that forgiveness that we show to black men, that is not often extended to black women. That protection, that uplifting, that defense of, that desire to uplift and protect, that was not extended to Rihanna. The vast majority of people I saw attacking Rihanna and blaming Rihanna for what happened to her were black people. Another conversation for another day because I'm getting off topic and I want to wrap this up. Chris Brown's core demographic is black people, specifically black women. Chris Brown is still doing very well. Chris Brown is performing very well with his core demographic. The only real people who are holding the line and holding him accountable and are unwilling to platform him are mostly mainstream societies, mainstream media, AKA white people. Like, I know that there are white Chris Brown fans out there. They obviously exist. You know, I'd be seeing them at the concert photos and things like that. However, Chris Brown's core demographic, target audience is Black people, specifically Black women, and those are the people who are continuing to make sure and ensure he has a very fruitful, lucrative, successful career that has not stopped, despite so many people saying he is saying or asserting that his career has been ruined. And I only think that perception exists because we don't see him on these mainstream platforms in mainstream media. You know, we don't see him performing at the Grammys, despite the fact he just won a Grammy. We don't see him performing at the Grammys. We don't see him performing at award shows. I don't think he really even goes to award shows anymore, you know? So I think people are wanting acceptance for him when it comes to when it comes to the mainstream, when it comes to the most visible audiences and spaces, completely disregarding the fact that he is still doing very well. He is still touring. He is still making music. He is still highly regarded amongst his peers. To wrap this up, this conversation that we see continuously resurface after the Super Bowl especially, but every kind of 12 to 18 months, you know, is it time to move past Chris Brown assaulting Rihanna? Can we forgive Chris Brown? Is it time to move on? People have moved on. Chris Brown has definitely moved on. Rihanna has moved on. The fact that he has a career at all and is still very successful should be an indicator to people. Everyone has moved on and his career hasn't really stopped. He's doing just fine. Like, Chris Brown is doing okay. His career was never destroyed as a result of his colorism. It was never destroyed as a result of his history of violence. Did it cause him to miss out on certain opportunities and not be invited to certain platforms? Absolutely, absolutely, especially right after it happened. He definitely was deplatformed by mainstream society. All of these mainstream award shows, the big, you know, big award shows that we associate with having made it in the music industry and having been successful. However, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the course of his career, he still has a very active and loud fan base that supports him. He is still making music. He's even crossed over internationally. He's making music with Afrobeats artists. Matter of fact, I was just in Lagos and I heard them playing him in the club. And this was in December. Like, I think he has a new song with, is it Davido? Or he has a new song with some Afrobeats artist and he's selling out stadiums in freaking South Africa. So Chris Brown is doing very well. Sierra performed with him. She did some tribute with him. Kelly Rowland, a dark-skinned Black woman like myself, was telling people it's time to forgive him and move on. So he's still highly and well regarded amongst his peers. He is still very successful. Chris Brown isn't struggling. He's not broke. There's this sob story and narrative that's being painted around him, which is very confusing to me because he's doing okay. And even as someone who's not a fan of his, I know this. So I know the fans know he is doing well. So stop trying to gaslight us. Like, please and thank you. Like, please and thank you. We saw what we saw and we said, no, thank you, please. But you know what that means? It just means more for you. Lucky you. He's winning Grammys. He's selling out tours. He's selling out shows. You can hear him when you go to Africa now. When you go to Nigeria, you can hear him say, like, he's doing okay, okay? He's doing okay. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this one last time. He's doing okay, girl, or boy, or they. You know, he's doing fine. For those of us who are not rocking with him, you don't need us to forgive him. I think out of this, what it's made me realize is that there is actively, well, it hasn't made me realize it. It's just another example of the ways in which the bar is so low for men and we are just expected to look the other way because people are creating what people believe to be great art, great music, they're super talented. And maybe it's just me, but someone being super talented, that doesn't excuse really violent and heinous behavior, but that's just me. Drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace out.